is a manhunt underway in Southern California, and O.J. Simpson, the 46-year-old former football star, one of America's best-known personalities, faces the possibility of the death penalty.
The murder of Nicole Brown Simpson on June 12, 1994, remains one of the most harrowing tragedies of the decade. That night, Nicole, a devoted mother of 2 young children, was found brutally slain on the walkway leading to her Brentwood condo. Beside her lay the lifeless body of Ron Goldman, a friend who had come by her home to return a pair of glasses which her mother had forgotten. The crime scene was a nightmare, a tableau of blood, rage, and horror. Nicole's injuries were severe, with multiple stab wounds, including one so deep it nearly decapitated her. It was clear to investigators, whomever had killed her had done so with a terrifying personal fury. Who could harbor such hatred, and why? To truly understand Nicole's fate, one must look beyond that tragic evening and into the shadows of her past. Nicole Brown grew up under the California sun, part of an affluent family which had settled in Orange County after moving from Frankfurt, Germany. At just 18, she was drawn into a whirlwind romance with O.J. Simpson, a charismatic former NFL star with movie star status and a larger-than-life persona. To outsiders, they were the ultimate Hollywood couple. Married in 1985, they were surrounded by wealth, fame, and adoration. But behind closed doors, the fairy tale image would quickly crumble. Friends and family say that Nicole often felt overshadowed and controlled, often confiding in them stories of alleged abuse. Though she was married to one of the most celebrated men in America at the time, her life had become effectively a prison. In hushed conversations, she spoke of physical abuse, manipulation, and an escalating cycle of rage and control. The most chilling of these incidents happened on New Year's Eve in 1989. That night, bruised and terrified, Nicole called the police, desperate for help. In a voice shaking with fear, she recounted the violence which had become all too frequent. Still, even after that call, her claims seemed to dissolve into the background, overshadowed by O.J.'s fame and influence. In 1992, Nicole finally filed for divorce, determined to build a life free from fear. She wanted peace for herself and for her children, yet the break was anything but clean. According to friends, O.J. continued to linger in her life, sometimes showing up at her home unannounced, catching her up in a chilling blend of possessive resentment. Family members would later reveal that Nicole had kept a secret diary, a harrowing account which cataloged years of violence. Had she sensed the danger coming? Many say yes. In her final months, she reportedly told her friends that she feared for her life. On June 12, 1994, Nicole went out for dinner with family, a seemingly ordinary evening. Afterward, she returned to her Brentwood condo, though she wouldn't be alone for long. Ron Goldman, a friend, had offered to return a pair of glasses that Nicole's mother had left behind. Goldman arrived at her doorstep, completely unaware of the horrors which awaited them both. When police arrived hours later, they found both bodies drenched in blood. The violence at the scene spoke volumes. A person driven by unbridled rage had ended both their lives, leaving detectives grappling with questions no one could yet answer. what had transpired in those last brutal moments, and who had so much hatred for Nicole. With the arrest and subsequent trial of O.J. Simpson, Nicole's story became front-page news, and the world learned of her hidden suffering. Details of her calls to police, her pleas for help, and the diary entries painting her life of fear would emerge in the courtroom, a grim testament to the pain which she had endured. But even as blood evidence, a dropped glove, and O.J.'s eerie, slow-speed chase would captivate the world, the not guilty verdict left a nation in disbelief. Could this have been prevented? Was justice served? Or did fame and privilege eclipse Nicole's cries for help? Could her fate have been avoided if somebody had truly cared to listen? Decades later, the memory of Nicole Brown Simpson lingers as both a tragedy and a cautionary tale about the silent suffering which too many still endure. Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to Memento Mori Stories. I'm Ella Favela, your guide through the darker corners of human experience. If you're captivated by the mysteries of life, where coffee fuels your curiosity and tales of true crime send chills down your spine, you've found your place. Whether you're a returning listener or you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm excited to have you here with us. So, find a cozy spot and let's get into a spine-tingling narrative. If you thrive on stories that challenge your perception and keep you on edge, make sure to hit that subscribe button and also to ring the notification bell. We release new content every 2 weeks, and I'd be honored to have you along for the ride into the shadows. If you're intrigued by what happens behind the scenes of my life, please follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. I'm always up to something, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. You'll find all of my social links conveniently displayed on the screen, and they're clickable down in the description box below. Now, we need to discuss what's coming up. Today's episode covers a deeply impactful and sensitive story which may evoke strong emotions in my listeners. Please remember that we don't just tell stories on this channel. These are real-life events that have had profound effect on many individuals and their communities. Please be advised, this channel is not intended for minors. Today's episode includes extremely graphic content and in-depth discussions on domestic abuse, violence, assault, and murder. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Given the intensity of these themes, it's essential for you to take care of your mental and emotional well-being. We believe in the importance of openly discussing these topics in order to foster understanding and empathy. However, we also recognize the potential for listener distress. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, or if these topics resonate too closely with your own experiences, it is completely fine to take a step back and to skip today's episode. Your mental and emotional health is my top priority, and it's crucial for you to honor your own needs and boundaries. As we explore these harrowing stories, please remember that the aim of this channel is not to sensationalize pain, rather to honor victims and to shed light on the realities which they endure. We want to create a space where these difficult conversations lead to greater awareness and ultimately to change. By understanding the darker aspects of human behavior, we hope to contribute to the broader dialogue on prevention and support for those affected by such violence. If you or somebody that you know is dealing with these issues or is carrying the weight of past trauma, please know that you're not alone. There are resources and support systems available to help you. We've included a list of links and contacts in the description below, many of which I used when leaving my own abuser, which may offer you some assistance. Whether you seek support from a professional, talk to a trusted confidant, or simply take a break from consuming heavy media, please know that there are pathways to your own healing. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Let's approach these stories with the compassion and respect which they deserve, and strive to learn from them in ways that promote understanding and healing. Now, it's time for you to grab a cup of coffee and settle in as we unravel the tragic case of Nicole Brown Simpson.
911 emergency.
Can you get someone over here now to 325 Gretna Green? He's back. Please.
Well, okay, what does he look like?
He's O.J. Simpson. I think you know his record. Could you just send somebody over here?
Okay, what is he doing there?
He just drove up again.
He just drove
somebody
up.
over.
Okay, wait a minute. What kind of car is he in?
He's in a white Bronco, but first of all, he broke the back door down to get in.
Okay, wait a minute. What's your name?
Nicole Simpson.
Okay.
Nicole Brown was born on May 19, 1959, in Frankfurt, Germany, the daughter of Juditha and Louis Brown. Her father was an American and her mother was German, giving Nicole a blend of cultural backgrounds which would later shape her open and curious personality. She grew up in a close-knit family with 3 sisters, Denise, Dominique, and Tanya, forming bonds that remained strong throughout her life. Nicole's family eventually moved to the United States, settling in the sunny, affluent communities of Southern California. This would become her backdrop, a world of beaches, surfing, and the social excitement of Orange County. Nicole spent her childhood in the quiet suburbs, marked by a laid-back, carefree Californian lifestyle. Friends remember her as cheerful and friendly, someone who loved to laugh and was always quick to reach out to others. She was known for her radiant smile and her kind heart, and she made friends easily, drawing people to her with her infectious energy and warmth. Athletic and adventurous, she loved spending time at the beach, where she'd often go surfing and swimming, soaking up the sun and enjoying the simplicity of coastal life. She had an innate sense of style, always dressing in a way that highlighted her natural beauty, but never so much in a flashy manner. Her look was understated yet elegant, even as a teenager. Nicole was an excellent student who showed a genuine interest in her education. Her friends and family recall that she took school seriously and often dreamed about what she wanted to achieve as she grew older. She wasn't necessarily drawn to fame or to wealth, but she seemed to crave meaningful experiences and connections with others. Creative at heart, Nicole had a knack for design and fashion and imagined herself working in an industry where she could use her artistic talents. Her dream was to create a life for herself where she could make a difference while still being true to her easygoing and compassionate nature. After graduating from Dana Hills High School in Dana Point, California, Nicole began working as a waitress at a restaurant in Beverly Hills. While it was a modest job, it offered her the chance to work in a bustling environment and to meet people from various walks of life. The job suited her social personality well, giving her the opportunity to connect with customers and colleagues alike. Her striking beauty and friendly demeanor made her a standout, even in the glamorous landscape of Los Angeles. People were drawn to her authenticity. She had a warmth about her that made everyone feel welcome, whether they were friends, coworkers, or strangers. Outside of work, Nicole kept close ties with her family. Her sisters and parents remained her foundation, offering her guidance and support. She was especially close to her sister Denise, and the two shared many adventures together, embodying the carefree spirit of California. Nicole valued her family deeply, and they remained a priority in her life, no matter what twists or turns would come her way. In many ways, Nicole Brown was a typical SoCal girl, a blend of beachy charm, friendly warmth, and understated elegance. Her life, before meeting OJ, was filled with big dreams, close bonds, and a deep-rooted kindness that endeared her to everyone who met her. Nicole's early years paint the picture of a young woman who was genuinely loved, full of potential, and on the cusp of discovering her path in the world. O.J. Simpson was born Orenthal James Simpson on July 9, 1947, in San Francisco, California, to Eunice, a hospital administrator, and Jimmy Lee Simpson, a cook and bank custodian who would later become a well-known drag queen in the Bay Area. O.J. grew up in a modest environment, facing his share of challenges early on in life. He suffered from rickets as a child, which led to bowed legs and required him to wear braces until he was 5. The condition, along with other health and economic struggles, meant that O.J.'s early years were not easy. Yet, these experiences seemed to fuel a sense of determination, which would become central to his personality. O.J. developed an interest in sports during his teenage years, finding an outlet that not only helped him physically, but also helped him develop a sense of identity and purpose. His athletic talent was undeniable, particularly in football, where he quickly stood out as a running back with speed, agility, and a keen understanding of the game. He attended Galileo High School in San Francisco, where he excelled in both track and football, showing early signs of the athletic prowess which would later define his life. By the time that he graduated, it was clear that O.J. had a bright future in sports, a path which seemed like a natural fit for his ambition and drive. After high school, Simpson attended City College of San Francisco and continued to hone his skills on the field. His talent soon caught the attention of college scouts, leading him to transfer to the University of Southern California, USC, a powerhouse in college football. At USC, O.J. solidified his reputation as one of the most talented running backs in the country. He was known for his incredible speed, fluid running style, and natural ability to evade defenders, earning him the nickname The Juice, a play on his initials. In 1968, he won the Heisman Trophy, the most prestigious award in college football, marking him as the best player in the country and paving the way for a professional career in the NFL. In 1969, Simpson was selected by the Buffalo Bills as the #1 overall draft pick, and he quickly rose to stardom. By 1973, he became the first player in NFL history to rush for over 2,000 yards in a single season, a feat which would secure his status as a football legend. His athletic accomplishments and magnetic personality soon made him a media sensation. He would transition seamlessly from sports into the entertainment world, starring in commercials and movies, and would become one of the first Black athletes to transcend the boundaries of race in popular American culture. Simpson's charm, humor, and good looks made him a beloved figure, and he leveraged this to build a successful career beyond the gridiron. He became a spokesperson for major brands, notably Hertz, and acted in television and film, including memorable roles in the Naked Gun series. By the 1980s, O.J. was a household name and a symbol of success, particularly within the Black community, representing a narrative of triumph over adversity. However, beneath his success and public persona, those close to Simpson would later reveal that he possessed a complex and often volatile temperament. Friends and former teammates described him as fiercely competitive, determined to maintain his carefully curated image. While he was widely respected and admired by the public, those closest to him saw a more intense side, one marked by a need for control and an underlying personal tension which would surface unpredictably.
I used to run through airports. Now I fly through them. With new Hertz #1 Express service, I fly non-stop from my plane to my car without stopping at the counter. If you ask for #1 Express when you make your reservation, your Ford or other fine car and contract will be waiting at the #1 Express booth. Once again, Hertz puts you in the driver's seat faster than anybody else.
When O.J. met Nicole in 1977, he was already a national sensation, a charismatic, larger-than-life NFL star who had seamlessly transitioned into the world of Hollywood. O.J. was married at the time to his first wife, Marguerite, with whom he shared 3 children, but he was captivated when he met the young Nicole working as a waitress at a Beverly Hills nightclub. Nicole, at the time, fresh out of high school, had dreams of independence and an energetic personality that matched her radiant smile. Friends who witnessed their first meetings said that O.J. was immediately drawn to her youthful spirit, elegance, and down-to-earth charm. Nicole was flattered by the attention of a man as famous and admired as O.J. Despite the vast difference in age, her being 18 and him nearly 30, their chemistry was undeniable. Simpson went to great lengths to impress her, treating her to lavish dinners, luxurious gifts, and exclusive outings. He was generous, funny, and captivating, offering her a glimpse into a lifestyle she had never experienced. For a young woman from a close-knit, middle-class family, it was a fairy tale romance with a man who seemed larger than life. Friends and family recall that she was swept off her feet, mesmerized by his charm and the glamour that surrounded him. As their relationship grew, O.J. made it very clear that he wanted Nicole to be a central part of his life. Not long after they began dating, he divorced Marguerite, and Nicole soon found herself fully immersed in his world. Her days were spent attending Hollywood events, joining him at high-profile parties, and accompanying him on extravagant vacations. Friends described Nicole as being enchanted by the whirlwind lifestyle, but still maintaining her down-to-earth personality. She was still a woman who loved spending time with her friends and family whenever she could. Despite the glittering Hollywood veneer, she remained a grounded and warm-hearted person, often reaching out to those she felt needed a friend or a helping hand. However, even in the early days, those closest to Nicole saw signs of complexity in her relationship with O.J. His intensity was thrilling, but at times, overwhelming. Friends quickly noticed his protective nature and how he often wanted her by his side, seemingly eager to keep her close, but also, perhaps, isolated. His charisma and his humor could give way to a demanding side, one that made Nicole feel that she needed to fit into his world, rather than allowing her to create her own identity within it. Despite the occasional doubts, Nicole felt deeply connected to O.J., and she loved him genuinely, convinced that he was her soulmate. Their relationship had an undeniable passion, but it also had hints of control and jealousy that would later become much more pronounced. Friends recall that O.J. seemed to expect a certain level of loyalty and attention from Nicole, as though he needed her to complete his idealized life. For Nicole, it could be challenging to balance her youth and independence with the demands of being attached to a man whose presence could easily overshadow hers. Despite these early warning signs, Nicole believed in the possibility of her relationship with O.J. She chose to see the good in him, his humor, charm, and protective instincts, and hoped that their love would overcome any further challenges. In those first few years, their love story appeared idyllic, a powerful connection between a beloved American icon and a young woman with her own big dreams. As their bond grew stronger, she began to see a future with him, hopeful that the man she adored would always be her protector. Yet, those closest to her couldn't help but wonder, was the fairy tale as perfect as it seemed? O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown began their marriage in the spotlight, a picture-perfect couple with all of the trappings of success and celebrity. They married on February 2nd, 1985, at a glamorous affair which hinted at a fairy tale life ahead of them. Soon after, Nicole became pregnant with their first child, Sydney, and the two settled into their Brentwood home, excited to start a family. To outsiders, it appeared as if they were living the perfect life. But behind the doors of their beautiful home, Nicole was beginning to experience the dark undercurrents of her marriage to O.J. During her pregnancy with Sydney, what should have been a joyful time turned into a massive challenge. According to friends, Nicole confided that O.J. often made cruel comments about her changing body. Instead of supporting her through the physical changes of pregnancy, he would criticize her appearance, reportedly calling her a fat pig, and even commenting that he wouldn't touch her because she was, quote, disgusting. He even went so far as to forbid her from having a natural birth or from breastfeeding because he, quote, didn't want her to ruin her body any further. These remarks cut Nicole deep, reinforcing her growing sense of inadequacy and further diminishing her self-esteem. Friends recall that Nicole, usually confident and high-spirited, began to withdraw, and she seemed more self-conscious, questioning herself as her husband's hurtful words would leave a lasting impact. Regardless, Nicole's devotion to motherhood was unwavering, and she poured her entire self into creating a warm and nurturing environment for Sydney. However, O.J.'s criticisms extended far beyond her pregnancy, bleeding into nearly every part of their family's lives. When their second child, Justin, was born in 1988, Nicole's attempts to focus on her children and to shield them from tension only seemed to intensify O.J.'s control and critical nature. He continued to make disparaging remarks about her, pointing out her perceived flaws and undermining her decisions regarding their children. Nicole's desire to maintain a happy home was met with constant judgment, leaving her feeling completely inadequate as both a wife and a mother. Friends and family members began to notice that Nicole was very different. The once vibrant and confident woman was now quiet and withdrawn, especially around O.J. While she maintained an outwardly strong and composed demeanor, those closest to her sensed that she was struggling under the weight of his expectations. Her sisters noted that Nicole's energy had changed. She was more tentative, often quick to seek O.J.'s approval and to placate him. They noted that she no longer expressed herself freely in his presence, as though each word she spoke was carefully weighed to avoid provoking him. O.J. demanded Nicole's loyalty and obedience, and his need for control extended far beyond the usual bounds of a healthy partnership. If Nicole planned an outing or even a simple visit to a friend's, he would question her about it, oftentimes accusing her of neglecting her responsibilities at home. He reportedly grew jealous if she spent too much time outside of their family circle, reminding her of his role as the provider and casting her social life as trivial. Nicole's friends observed that she became increasingly isolated, oftentimes turning down invitations to avoid the fallout that would inevitably follow. Gradually, her world shrank, restricted by O.J.'s possessive nature and constant surveillance. Throughout these years, Nicole kept most of their troubles private, but close friends could see signs that the relationship was wearing her down. Any attempt she made to assert independence was met with criticism, with O.J. belittling her intelligence and making comments that suggested that she was lucky to be with him. He oftentimes called her stupid or ungrateful, using his status and accomplishments to remind her of his perceived superiority. In public, he would remain charming and affable, but in private, he seemed to resent any attempt by Nicole to carve out her own space or identity. OJ's violent nature extended to his reactions when Nicole attempted to establish boundaries. He grew frustrated and angry if she would challenge him or if her actions didn't align with his desires. At one point, he allegedly told her that without him, she would be nothing, reducing her sense of self-worth to only her role in his life. For Nicole, who had always been independent and family-oriented, this need for his control was stifling. She began to feel trapped, with very few outlets for the frustration she was experiencing. Nicole's role as a mother would become her solace and her strength. She adored Sydney and Justin and focused on providing them with a happy and stable home, even if that meant quietly bearing the burden of OJ's controlling and demeaning behaviors. Family members noticed that Nicole would light up around her children, finding joy in small moments with them, despite the challenges in her marriage. But beneath her devotion lay an ever-growing fear and sense of helplessness, as his criticisms and possessive tendencies seemed only to deepen with time. The contrast between OJ's public and private behavior was stark. While the world saw him as the all-American hero, Nicole saw the darker side, an intensity that would explode in anger, a possessiveness that went beyond simple affection, and words that cut to the core. She held on to the hope that things may improve, that perhaps OJ would return to the charming and loving man she had first fallen for. But each belittling remark, each instance of jealousy, each insult about her appearance and intelligence added to a silent and accumulating weight that she carried alone. Over time, her marriage, which had once promised a life full of love and happiness, would become an unspoken struggle. Nicole was now isolated, left to endure her pain privately, and to hope for a peace that never seemed to come.
And friends were always around who say Nicole loved decorating, cooking, and not the limelight.
Make the basket. Make the basket now.
The family told us Simpson chided her to keep up the glamorous looks he loved. Yet as time went on, they say there were signs of strain. Nicole seemed frustrated in the marriage, smothered. They say, as always, working hard, maybe too hard, to get it right.
She said, he's stressing me out. His explanation was, well, I've been away all week. Yeah, I want 100% of her when I'm home.
Yeah.
And that would make her really tense.
Because she was a perfectionist. She wanted everything to be perfect. They fought. She did tell me that he has a bad temper, which we knew.
He was insanely jealous. But she was completely devoted to him.
As Nicole's marriage to OJ continued to unfold, the early signs of possessiveness and control would escalate into a pattern of relentless emotional and physical abuse. For years, Nicole endured his increasingly volatile temper and possession, attempting to keep her family intact and to shield her children from the turmoil brewing behind closed doors. However, as the abuse intensified, it became impossible for her to ignore the gravity of her situation, and her fear grew along with OJ's erratic behaviors. Throughout their marriage, friends and family members would recall Nicole's attempts to downplay or to hide the abuse, although some incidents were impossible to keep a secret. In one unforgettable moment, during a New Year's Eve celebration in 1989, Nicole called the police in desperation, fearing for her life. When officers arrived, they found her bruised and shaken, her face swollen from OJ's recent assault. She tearfully told them, "He's going to kill me." This moment marked one of the rare times Nicole allowed the outside world a glimpse into the nightmare in which she was living. And yet, Despite her obvious fear and the visible signs of abuse, she was hesitant to press charges. O.J., being a beloved public figure, managed to escape significant consequences. The violence didn't end with that incident. Over the years, O.J. continued to assert control over Nicole, manipulating her through both emotional intimidation and physical force. Nicole's friends later revealed that she documented her abuse in diaries, where she described in heartbreaking detail the cycle of rage, regret, and reconciliation that dominated their relationship. She described how O.J. would fly into fits of rage over minor issues, berating her, calling her names, and oftentimes physically lashing out at her. He made her feel insignificant and worthless, telling her that she was nothing without him, and accusing her of infidelity if she so much as talked to another man. Friends and family grew increasingly concerned as Nicole began to share more and more about the extent of the abuse, although often in vague terminology. Close friends noticed how she flinched at loud noises or sudden movements, seeming to walk on eggshells in O.J.'s presence. Her sisters saw how her once vibrant spirit had been ground down to nearly nothing, replaced by a quiet anxiety that hinted at the constant state of fear under which she was living. Even when she managed to escape to her parents' home or to take short breaks away from O.J., Nicole would return to him, driven by a mixture of hope and fear, convinced that things might improve if she stayed for the sake of their family. Despite her many attempts to keep her family whole, the violence was beginning to reach a breaking point. Nicole documented these incidents carefully, recording dates, times, descriptions, and even taking photographs of her injuries. She would confide to her friends that she felt trapped, fearing for her safety, yet unsure of how to fully extricate herself from O.J.'s control. Although she felt ready to leave on many occasions, she would be drawn back into the cycle, as O.J. would apologize, promise to change, and attempt to win her back with gifts and displays of affection. However, each promise proved to be empty, and the abuse would inevitably resurface. By the early 1990s, Nicole's resilience had worn thin. She was no longer the hopeful woman who had entered that marriage. The years of abuse had taken a visible toll. For the sake of her children and her own survival, she realized that leaving was her only option. Yet, she also understood the many risks of trying to leave a man like O.J., someone who was not only powerful and possessive, but who also saw her attempts to escape as a personal betrayal. In 1992, Nicole made the difficult decision to file for divorce, finally taking steps to reclaim her life and to protect her children. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she hoped that, outside of O.J.'s grasp, she would begin to heal and to rebuild. The divorce marked a formal end to their marriage, but it was far from the end of Nicole's fears. In truth, the act of leaving O.J. only deepened the tension between them, leaving her to wonder if she had truly escaped the danger or merely ignited an even darker fury. After Nicole Brown filed for divorce from O.J. Simpson in 1992, she hoped to reclaim her life and to provide a stable environment for her two children, Sydney and Justin. Leaving him marked a pivotal moment in her journey, as she sought independence and healing from years of abuse. However, the aftermath of the divorce proved to be fraught with many challenges, as O.J.'s threats and obsessive behavior continued to haunt her. Initially, Nicole embraced her newfound freedom with much enthusiasm. She focused on her children, attending school events, soccer games, and dance recitals. Friends often remarked on her resilience. She was determined to demonstrate to her children that they could build a life away from O.J.'s oppressive shadow. Nicole engaged in activities that allowed her to regain her identity. She began volunteering at schools and surrounded herself with supportive friends who encouraged her to speak about her experiences. Yet, underneath this optimistic facade, a darker reality loomed. Nicole was not free from OJ's grasp. Despite the divorce, he continued to exert control over her life, displaying erratic behavior that left her on constant edge. In the years following their separation, Nicole documented her fears, continuing her diaries, revealing the depths of her trauma. Her writings painted a chilling picture of OJ's threats and the toll which they took on her. In one entry, she recounted his aggressive demeanor and the chilling words he used to intimidate her, stating, quote, "I'll kill you. You can't do this to me." Nicole noted that OJ would call her incessantly, threatening violence if she continued to attempt to move on with her life. Even after their separation, friends would report that she seemed anxious and fearful, particularly when OJ was around her or when he would call her late at night. One friend recalled that she would say, "He thinks he owns me. He thinks he can still control me." Despite her best efforts to distance herself, OJ would show up unannounced, attempting to manipulate her into having conversations that often ended in shouting matches. Her fear was palpable, as she recognized that OJ's obsession was far from over. In December 1992, Nicole met Cato Kalin during a skiing trip in Aspen, Colorado. Their friendship blossomed, and Cato later moved into the guest house on Nicole's property on Gretna Green Way, where he would live for a year. This living arrangement allowed him to help care for Nicole's children, Sydney and Justin, providing companionship and support in the wake of her tumultuous marriage. Nicole also entertained other suitors during this time, including restaurateur Keith Zlomsowicz and NFL star Marcus Allen. Despite the rumors swirling around her lifestyle, including speculation about recreational drug use, there was no solid evidence to support these claims. In fact, when she passed away, Nicole had no drugs in her system, and her home was free of any paraphernalia. In January 1994, Nicole moved a few minutes away to a spacious Mediterranean-style townhome on Bundy Drive in Brentwood. This new residence, spanning 3,400 square feet, offered multiple patios and a rooftop sun deck, nestled in a picturesque neighborhood that featured country clubs, parks, hiking trails, and was only 4 miles from the ocean. Nicole drove a sleek Ferrari, which she would later lend to Ron Goldman, a restaurant waiter she had recently met. Her sister Denise noted that this period was one of newfound vitality for Nicole, describing her as vivacious and full of life. The two had made plans for adventures that included camping trips and visits to Club Med, emphasizing a life centered around family and fun. However, this chapter of her life was not free of complexity, as Nicole was still navigating the emotional remnants of her marriage to OJ, including attempts at reconciliation, and the challenges that came with being a single mother. As she settled into her new home, Nicole's final days were marked by both hope and turmoil. She had developed a platonic friendship with Ron Goldman, often meeting him for coffee and dinner. Their connection was innocent, yet it would soon become part of a tragic narrative. In May 1994, Nicole fell ill with pneumonia, prompting OJ to care for her, a move that hinted at the complicated ties that still bound them. The turning point came when Nicole sought a restraining order against OJ, highlighting the continued threat that he posed to her safety. In court documents, she recounted specific incidents that underlined her fear, stating, quote, "He has a tendency to become violent and unpredictable." Nicole's friends and family rallied behind her, emphasizing the need for protection and support. However, O.J. would continue to deny any wrongdoing, publicly portraying himself as the victim and continuously attempting to discredit Nicole's claims. In her diary, Nicole expressed her growing despair, revealing the psychological scars left by years of abuse. She wrote, quote, "I am constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for him to appear." The emotional turmoil that accompanied her post-divorce life was a testament to the lingering effects of his abuse, showing that the scars of their relationship would not easily fade. Despite having found the courage to leave, she found herself ensnared in a web of fear and manipulation that persisted long after the divorce papers were signed. Her attempts to rebuild her life and to create a safe environment were continuously overshadowed by O.J.'s threats. She often confided in friends about her fears, stating, quote, "I feel like I can never escape him." The memories of their turbulent marriage haunted her, leaving her to grapple with the notion that true freedom was still out of reach. Each day became a battle to reclaim her identity, while navigating the psychological warfare that O.J. waged against her. A chilling reminder that the end of their marriage did not signify the end of her struggle. Just a day before her murder, Nicole spoke on the phone with her close friend, Kris Jenner, expressing a desire to confide about her volatile relationship with O.J. Nicole's intention to reveal the troubling dynamics of her past were tragically cut short when her life was taken, leaving many questions about what she might have shared and the direction her life could have taken. The stark contrast of vibrancy and looming danger framed Nicole's life in those last weeks, ultimately culminating in unspeakable tragedy. On the evening of June 12, 1994, Nicole and O.J. would attend their daughter Sydney's dance recital at Paul Revere Middle School. Following the performance, Nicole and her family went to Mezzaluna, a local restaurant, for dinner. Amongst the waitstaff that evening was Ron Goldman, the young man who had become a close friend of Nicole's in recent weeks. However, he was not assigned to the Brown family's table for that evening. After that meal, the Brown family stopped at Ben & Jerry's for ice cream before heading back to their home on Bundy Drive in Brentwood. At 9:37 p.m., Nicole's mother called the restaurant, inquiring about a pair of lost eyeglasses. The manager located the glasses and placed them in a white envelope. Goldman, finishing his shift at 9:50 p.m., took the envelope with him as he left the restaurant, intending to drop them off at Nicole's home. Meanwhile, O.J. spent the evening with Kato Kalin, a family friend and actor, dining on takeout from McDonald's. There were whispers in the media suggesting that Simpson might have been under the influence of drugs at the time, although subsequent blood tests would later prove negative for drugs in the systems of all three individuals involved in this case. As the evening progressed, Nicole's neighbors began to notice disturbances. They reported hearing intense barking from her dog, which started around 10:15 p.m. Around 10:55 p.m., a dog walker found her dog barking in the street with its legs covered in blood. The dog followed him home, and although he attempted to return it to its owner, the dog would resist. The dog walker eventually left the dog with a couple who lived nearby. Concerned about the animal's agitation, they decided to walk it back to where it had been found. When they reached Nicole's home just after midnight, they discovered her lifeless body lying outside. The police were quickly summoned to the scene, where they also found Goldman's body nearby. The front door to Brown's condominium was open, yet there were no signs of forced entry. Nicole's body had been discovered face down and barefoot at the base of the stairs leading to her door. Investigators noted that the walkway was covered in blood, but the soles of her feet remained clean, suggesting that she had been the first target of the attack. Multiple stab wounds to her head and neck indicated a brutal assault. A notable lack of defensive wounds on her hands implied that she had not been able to mount a prolonged defense against her attacker. The final and fatal wound inflicted on Nicole was a deep cut to her neck that severed both carotid arteries. This gruesome injury nearly decapitated her. Her larynx could be seen through the gaping wound, and her vertebrae were incised, indicating the ferocity of the attack. Investigators also observed a large bruise on her back, along with a footprint on her clothing, suggesting that after killing Ron Goldman, the assailant had returned to Nicole when she was down and inflicted the lethal blow. Ron's body was found close to a tree and a fence. He had also been stabbed multiple times, and similar to Nicole, he exhibited few defensive wounds, indicating that he had also been caught off guard. Forensic experts determined that the assailant had likely attacked Ron while holding him in a chokehold, resulting in the lack of defensive maneuvers. Nearby, investigators discovered a blue knit cap, an extra-large sized left-handed Eris isotoner glove, and the envelope containing the lost eyeglasses. These items indicated that Goldman had come to Nicole's home during the attack and was killed in order to eliminate a witness. As investigators processed the crime scene, they noted a trail of bloody shoe prints leading away from the site. Drops of blood from the assailant were found nearby, suggesting that he had sustained an injury during the attack. The pattern of the footprints indicated that the killer had walked away from the scene rather than fleeing in a hurry, raising further questions about the nature of this crime and the individual responsible for it. This horrific night would set off a chain of events that would unravel in a highly publicized investigation and trial, forever altering the lives of those involved and capturing the attention of a nation. The violent deaths of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman would soon become a focal point in discussions about domestic violence, race, and celebrity culture in America, shaping public discourse for many years to come. In the aftermath of the murders, O.J. quickly emerged as a suspect. The police had been alerted to his potential involvement due to his tumultuous relationship with Nicole. In the years leading up to the tragedy, numerous reports and testimonies had surfaced detailing a pattern of jealousy and abusive behavior which he had exhibited towards Nicole. Friends and family recounted instances of physical violence and emotional manipulation that characterized their relationship. These testimonies painted a portrait of a man whose fame and public persona masked a much darker side, one filled with volatility and aggression. On the evening of June 12, 1994, O.J. Simpson was scheduled to board a red-eye flight from Los Angeles International Airport to Chicago, where he was set to play golf the next day at a convention for the Hertz Corporation, for whom he served as a spokesman. The flight was due to depart at 11:45 p.m. Limousine driver Alan Park arrived at Simpson's Rockingham estate at approximately 10:25 p.m. to pick him up. To ensure he could navigate the area properly, Park drove around the estate, assessing which driveway would provide the best access for the limousine. By 10:40 p.m., Park began to buzz the intercom, but received no response. Noting the darkened house, he assumed no one was home. While waiting, he saw a shadowy figure, similar in stature to O.J., enter the front door. Park could not discern the figure's direction of approach, and later testify that he saw Simpson's house number, but noticed no car parked outside, despite Simpson's Ford Bronco being found in the driveway the following morning. At the same time Park was waiting, Cato Kalin was on the phone with a friend when he heard a series of loud thumps that he initially thought was an earthquake. Concerned, he hung up and ventured outside, but did not check the dark pathway from which the sounds had originated. Instead, he walked to the front of the property, where he saw the limousine waiting. Shortly after, OJ emerged from the house, claiming that he had overslept. During the ride to the airport, OJ appeared agitated, complaining about the heat despite the mild temperatures that evening. Park later recalled that Simpson insisted on loading a specific backpack himself, which he later discovered was missing when Simpson checked in at the airport, as he only registered 3 bags. Reports would later surface that OJ was seen at the airport discarding items from a bag into a trash can, which detectives would later speculate included the murder weapon and the clothing worn during the attack. Although he was running late, Simpson caught his flight to Chicago. Witnesses on the plane, including a fellow passenger and the pilot, noted that OJ did not exhibit any cuts or injuries on his hands. However, upon arriving at the O'Hare Plaza Hotel in Chicago, he would request a Band-Aid for a cut on his finger, which he claimed resulted from handling notepaper. Back in Los Angeles, the initial investigation was beginning to unfold after police learned that Nicole Simpson was one of the murder victims. LAPD Commander Keith Bushy dispatched detectives to notify OJ of her death and also to escort him to the station to collect the couple's children, who were asleep at Nicole's condo at the time of her death. However, after buzzing the intercom at OJ's estate for over 30 minutes without a response, detectives grew concerned. They noted that Simpson's car was parked awkwardly, with blood on the door, raising fears that someone inside might be hurt. Detective Philip Vaneter instructed Officer Mark Furman to scale the wall and unlock the gate to allow them entry. Furman conducted a brief interview with Cato Kalin, who mentioned the thumps he had heard earlier. While inspecting the property, Furman discovered a blood-stained right glove, which was later matched to a left-hand glove found near Goldman's body. This critical piece of evidence, along with the blood found in the driveway and inside Simpson's vehicle, provided probable cause for a search warrant. Simpson was later contacted in Chicago, where he expressed a deep upset over Nicole's murder. Yet, his responses were oddly detached. The detectives noted a cut on his left hand, consistent with bleeding at the crime scene, but OJ continued to attribute it to an accident in Chicago. He voluntarily provided blood samples for comparison with evidence collected at the scene, and he was released.
All right, the record should reflect now that the defendant is present with counsel. You may be seated if you wish. And would counsel state their appearances for the record?
Good morning. Robert Walshapiro and Sarah Goldman.
And good morning, Your Honor. William Hodgman for the people.
Marcia Clark for the people. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. All right, there are a number of matters on calendar today.
After hiring attorney Robert Shapiro, Simpson's mental state began to deteriorate, prompting concern from those closest to him. Preliminary DNA results indicated a match to Simpson, but the district attorney delayed filing charges until all results were in. On June 17th, with the final DNA results available, detectives recommended charging Simpson with 2 counts of first-degree murder. An arrest warrant was subsequently issued, and police notified Shapiro that Simpson needed to turn himself in that day. Amidst escalating media scrutiny, O.J.'s whereabouts became uncertain. He had left behind 3 sealed letters, including one that many interpreted as a note, expressing his love for his children and a plea for privacy. As the police escalated their search, Simpson was declared a fugitive, setting the stage for a dramatic and highly publicized manhunt. As news helicopters scanned the Los Angeles highways for Al Cowling's white 1993 Ford Bronco, the tense situation unfolded on June 17, 1994. At 5:51 p.m., Simpson reportedly placed a 911 call, traced to the Santa Ana Freeway near Lake Forest. By around 6:20 p.m., a motorist in Orange County alerted the California Highway Patrol after seeing someone resembling Simpson in a Bronco on the northbound I-5 freeway. Authorities were able to track calls made from Simpson's cell phone throughout the ordeal. At 6:45 p.m., Officer Ruth Dixon spotted the Bronco on Interstate 405. When she caught up, Cowlings yelled that Simpson was in the back seat, holding a gun to his head. Concerned for Simpson's safety, Dixon backed off but maintained a slow pursuit, keeping pace at 35 miles per hour, while up to 20 police cars followed. Bob Turr from KCBS-TV was the first to locate Simpson from the air. He reported that FBI mobile tracking had pinpointed O.J.'s location at the El Toro Y. Eventually, more than 9 news helicopters joined the chase. Turr likened the overwhelming media presence to a scene from Apocalypse Now, which caused confusion as camera feeds appeared on the wrong television channels. Knowing Cowlings was listening to KNX-AM, sports announcer Pete Arbogast connected Simpson with his former USC football coach, John McKay. In a heartfelt conversation, O.J. assured McKay that he wouldn't do anything foolish. Arbogast later stated, "There is no doubt in my mind that McKay stopped O.J. from killing himself in the back of that Bronco." Throughout the chase, McKay and other notable figures like Walter Payton implored Simpson over the radio to surrender. Meanwhile, police at Parker Center strategized on how to persuade Simpson to give himself up peacefully. Detective Tom Lang had Simpson's cell phone number and called him repeatedly, capturing a recorded conversation where he urged O.J. to throw the gun out of the window for the sake of his family. Simpson expressed feelings of despair, saying he was, quote, "the only one who deserved to get hurt," and requested to go home. As the chase captivated viewers nationwide, Los Angeles streets emptied and bars paused drink orders as nearly 95 million people tuned in. Every major network interrupted regular programming to provide live coverage, drawing comparisons to major sporting events. Overpasses along the route filled with spectators, some even holding signs of encouragement to O.J., fostering a festival-like atmosphere that perplexed commentators. Eventually, Simpson demanded to speak with his mother before he would surrender. The chase concluded at his Brentwood estate at 8:00 p.m., where 27 SWAT officers waited for him. After remaining in the Bronco for about 45 minutes, Simpson exited and briefly spoke with his mother before surrendering to authorities. Inside the Bronco, police discovered roughly $8,000 in cash, a loaded .357 Magnum, a disguise kit, and other personal items. Simpson was booked at Parker Center and taken to Men's Central Jail, while Cowlings was arrested for harboring a fugitive. On June 20th, 1994, O.J. Simpson was arraigned for the murders of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, pleading not guilty but being held without bail. A grand jury was convened the following day, but was dismissed on June 23, 1994, due to extensive media coverage potentially affecting its impartiality. Instead, a probable cause hearing was heard, and on July 7, 1994, California Superior Court Judge Kathleen Kennedy Powell ruled that there was enough evidence to proceed to trial. At his second arraignment on July 22, 1994, Simpson reiterated his innocence, stating, "Absolutely, 100%, not guilty." The prosecution's case against O.J. was a complex interplay of evidence, testimony, and legal strategy. The trial began on January 24, 1995, just over 7 months after the brutal murders, and unfolded in a highly publicized environment, with Judge Lance Ito presiding over the proceedings at the C.S. Foltz Criminal Courts building in Los Angeles. The prosecution aimed to construct a narrative which portrayed Simpson as an abuser whose history of domestic violence ultimately culminated in murder. At the heart of the prosecution's case was the assertion that Simpson's anger and jealousy towards Brown drove him to kill her on the night of June 12, 1994. The prosecution argued that Simpson had a documented history of domestic violence against Brown, including the famous 1989 incident in which he pled no contest to charges of spousal abuse. Testimony from police officers and emergency dispatchers revealed that Brown had expressed fear for her life, emphasizing that O.J. was a violent individual who had threatened her safety. The prosecution's strategy relied heavily on the narrative of abuse to establish a motive for the murders. Key to the prosecution's case was a series of witness testimony, which illustrated the pattern of violence in Simpson and Brown's relationship. For example, the prosecution called Denise Brown, Nicole's sister, to testify about numerous incidents of abuse which she had personally witnessed. She detailed how Simpson would often lash out physically, throwing Nicole out of their house during heated arguments. This testimony was designed to paint a picture of a volatile relationship. One of the most damning pieces of evidence presented was a 911 call made by Nicole on January 1, 1989. In the recording, Brown can be heard crying and pleading for help, while Simpson's voice can be faintly heard in the background, yelling at her. The call was played for the jury, serving as a reminder of the fear that Nicole lived with during her marriage. This evidence was intended to demonstrate that O.J. had not only the means, but the motive to commit murder. In addition to the testimony regarding domestic violence, the prosecution presented forensic evidence that they believed linked Simpson to the crime. They highlighted the presence of his blood at the crime scene, along with DNA evidence from blood samples collected from Brown and Goldman. The prosecution argued that the blood evidence demonstrated Simpson's presence at the scene of the murders. They also pointed to the recovery of a pair of Bruno Magli's shoes in Simpson's home, which they claimed matched the shoe prints found at the crime scene. This evidence was critical in establishing a physical link between Simpson and the murders. Another pivotal piece of evidence was the infamous white Ford Bronco, which O.J. was driving on the night of the murders. A witness, Jill Shively, testified that she had seen a white Bronco speeding away from the vicinity of Bundy Drive shortly after the murder. The prosecution contended that this was in fact O.J.'s vehicle, suggesting that he fled the scene of the crime. Moreover, they argued that Simpson's actions following the murders, such as changing his clothes and disposing of evidence, were indicative of a guilty conscience. The prosecution's case also included the testimony of former LAPD officer Ron Shipp, who recounted a conversation he had with O.J. the day after the murders. Shipp testified that Simpson expressed a reluctance to take a polygraph test, stating, quote, "I've had a lot of dreams about killing her." This statement was aimed at undermining O.J.'s defense and establishing a psychological link to the murders. However, the prosecution faced numerous challenges during the trial. The defense team, led by high-profile attorneys Johnny Cochran and Robert Shapiro, aggressively worked to discredit the prosecution's evidence and to portray Simpson as a victim of a flawed investigation. They argued that the police had mishandled evidence, which created doubt about the reliability of the forensic evidence presented. For instance, the defense highlighted issues related to blood collection and storage, suggesting that contamination may have occurred. The prosecution also made the controversial decision to drop the domestic violence narrative from their case. Marcia Clark, the lead prosecutor, initially intended to present a robust case based on Simpson's history of abuse. However, internal discussions would lead to a strategic pivot. They believed that the DNA evidence would be sufficient to secure a conviction, but many speculated that the comments from a dismissed juror, who had herself been a victim of domestic violence, influenced this decision. After the trial, some jurors would express regret over the prosecution's decision to downplay the domestic violence evidence. Despite these setbacks, the prosecution's case painted a damning portrait of Simpson as an abusive spouse who had committed murder out of rage and jealousy. Their narrative relied heavily on forensic evidence, witness testimony regarding domestic violence, and Simpson's own actions following the crime, which they argued demonstrated consciousness of guilt. Ultimately, the prosecution's challenge was to convince a jury of Simpson's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a trial that became a media sensation, showcasing deep-seated issues surrounding race, celebrity, and justice in America. The LA Times featured the case on its front page for over 300 days, while nightly news broadcasts dedicated more airtime to the trial than to events like the Bosnian War and the Oklahoma City bombing combined. The trial's popularity even led to parodies on shows like The Tonight Show and turned participants into celebrities. Judge Ito's controversial decision to allow cameras in the courtroom contributed to the media frenzy, which many criticized as a, quote, media circus. Notably, Time magazine faced backlash for manipulating a photo cover of Simpson, sparking accusations of racist editorializing. Interest extended globally, with leaders like Boris Yeltsin questioning President Clinton about Simpson's guilt. The defense team, often referred to as the Dream Team, was comprised of high-profile attorneys who undertook the complex task of countering the prosecution's narrative, which portrayed Simpson as a murderer driven by rage and jealousy.
Leading the team
were Johnny Cochran and Robert Shapiro, both of whom were already well-known figures in legal circles. They were joined by prominent attorneys Robert Kardashian and Alan Dershowitz, as well as forensic experts Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, who specialized in DNA evidence and its implication. From the outset, the defense aimed to create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jurors. Cochran and Shapiro assembled a formidable legal team focused on discrediting the prosecution's evidence, particularly the DNA and blood evidence, which formed the backbone of the prosecution's case. They argued that the evidence was mishandled by the LAPD, raising significant question about its reliability. Forensic expert Scheck emphasized the possibility of contamination during the collection and handling of blood samples, suggesting that the LAPD had compromised the integrity of the evidence. A critical element of the defense strategy was to undermine the prosecution's portrayal of O.J. as a violent abuser. They sought to argue that Simpson did not fit the typical profile of someone who would commit such a brutal crime. To bolster this claim, the defense attempted to introduce testimony from domestic violence expert Lenore Walker. She was slated to argue that not all abusers escalate to murder. However, Lenore was ultimately removed from the witness list after her opinions were met with criticism, particularly regarding the financial motivation behind her involvement in the case. Racial dynamics also played a significant role in the defense strategy. Cochran and his team highlighted systemic racism within the LAPD, arguing that Simpson, as a black man, was a target of law enforcement bias. They pointed to the conduct of Mark Furman, the detective assigned to the case, bringing forth evidence of Furman's history of racist remarks and past incidents of racial profiling. This approach positioned the defense to suggest that Furman had a motive to plant evidence against O.J. The defense famously introduced the glove as a critical piece of evidence, with Cochran's remark, quote, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," becoming iconic. This statement emphasized the narrative that the evidence was not only unreliable, but potentially fabricated. In addition to challenging the integrity of the evidence and the motivations of the police, the defense sought to establish an alternative narrative surrounding the murders of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. They proposed that the killings could have been the work of an unknown assailant, possibly connected to the drug underworld, suggesting that the violence was related to drug debts or disputes involving Brown's acquaintances. Although this theory lacked substantiating evidence, it provided a plausible alternative that diverted attention from O.J. The defense was also keenly aware of the media environment surrounding the trial. With the proceedings televised and a highly engaged public audience, they recognized that public perception could significantly influence the jury's decisions. Cochran's charismatic presence and ability to resonate emotionally with the jurors were pivotal in humanizing O.J. and portraying him as a wrongfully accused man, rather than a cold-blooded murderer. As the trial progressed, the defense's multifaceted approach effectively sowed seeds of doubt regarding the prosecution's case. By challenging the credibility of the evidence, exposing racial tensions, and presenting alternative explanation for the murders, the defense team worked tirelessly to create a narrative that cast Simpson in a sympathetic light and questioned the motives of the police. The verdict, delivered on October 3, 1995, was one of the most highly publicized and polarizing moments in all of American legal history. After nearly 8 months of intense courtroom proceedings, the jury reached a verdict of not guilty on all counts, acquitting Simpson of the murders of his ex-wife Nicole Brown and her friend, Ron Goldman. As the trial had progressed, public sentiment began to split along racial lines. Many African Americans viewed the trial as a broader commentary on systemic racism in the American justice system, while many other Americans saw it as a straightforward case of murder. This divide only intensified leading up to the verdict, and opinions were deeply entrenched on both sides. On the day of the verdict, the atmosphere was tense. The jury had been sequestered for months, and when they finally returned to the courtroom, they delivered their decision after only a few hours of deliberation. The announcement of Simpson's acquittal was met with a mix of cheers and tears in the courtroom and across the country. Supporters celebrated the verdict as a triumph over racial injustice, while many others were left outraged, believing that a guilty man had fully escaped justice. The fallout from the trial and its verdict had many lasting implications. The acquittal sparked discussion about race relations in America, domestic violence, and the media's role in shaping public opinion of high-profile cases. Simpson's case also widely influenced public trust in the legal system, with many feeling that celebrity status could shield individuals from accountability. Following the acquittal of O.J. Simpson in the criminal trial for the murders of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, the victims' families pursued justice through a civil trial. In 1997, the wrongful death lawsuit was filed by Goldman's family against Simpson, seeking financial compensation and accountability for the deaths of their loved ones. The civil trial took place in Santa Monica, California, and unlike the criminal trial, it did not require proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Instead, the burden of proof was lower, necessitating a preponderance of evidence, which made it easier for the plaintiffs to establish liability. The trial began on May 5, 1997, and lasted for several months, with jurors hearing testimony from witnesses, including experts in forensic evidence and the aftermath of the murders. Simpson's defense strategy in the civil trial differed from the criminal proceedings. He was represented by a different legal team, which included attorney Robert Baker. Simpson denied responsibilities for the deaths, maintaining that he had not harmed either victim. However, the evidence presented included testimony about Simpson's history of domestic violence and the infamous 911 call made by Nicole on the New Year's Eve prior to her death, which painted a troubling picture of their relationship. On February 4th, 1997, the jury found Simpson liable for the wrongful deaths of both Brown and Goldman, awarding the plaintiffs $8.5 million in compensatory damages and an additional $25 million in punitive damages. This verdict not only marked a significant financial blow to Simpson, but also symbolized a form of justice for the victims' families, contrasting sharply with the outcome of the criminal trial. In the final years of his life, O.J. Simpson remained a polarizing figure, often embroiled in controversy that would keep him in the public eye. Following his highly publicized acquittal in the 1995 murder trial, Simpson initially faded from the spotlight, but continued to face scrutiny regarding his past. In 2007, he made headlines once again when he was arrested in Las Vegas during a failed attempt to recover sports memorabilia that he claimed had been stolen from him. This incident led to charges of armed robbery and kidnapping, for which he was convicted in 2008. Simpson was sentenced to 33 years in prison, but ultimately served just 9 years before being granted parole in July 2017. Upon his release, Simpson attempted to navigate life outside of prison, but his efforts to re-enter public life were met with mixed reactions. He engaged with social media, using platforms like Twitter to share thoughts and connect with fans, but his comments often sparked controversy. In particular, his remarks regarding the murders of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman were met with backlash, as many felt he showed a lack of remorse or even acknowledgement of the pain caused by his actions. A notable incident that reignited public outrage was O.J.'s planned book, If I Did It, which was intended as a hypothetical account of the murders. The book was met with significant backlash, leading to its ultimate cancellation, but it was eventually published posthumously by the Goldman family, who repackaged it to reflect a more accusatory tone. Simpson's contentious relationship with this narrative exemplified his struggle with his past and also with the public's unyielding interest in his story. Simpson's post-prison life included appearances on reality television and interviews, where he attempted to portray a more benign image of himself. However, public sentiment remained divided. While some supported his right to rehabilitation and reintegration, many others could not separate him from his notorious past. In the years leading up to 2024, Simpson continued to grapple with his legacy, marked by a complicated relationship with fame, infamy, and the ongoing discussions about race, justice, and celebrity culture in America. He died of cancer on April 10, 2024. Nicole Brown's story is a tragic testament to the devastating impact of domestic abuse. Once a vibrant woman filled with dreams, her marriage to OJ transformed into a harrowing ordeal marked by fear and control. Despite her attempts to seek help, the cycle of abuse continued, illustrating the challenges many victims face when trying to escape an abusive relationship. Nicole's experience highlights the critical need for awareness and understanding of domestic violence, reminding us that it often remains hidden behind closed doors. The system repeatedly failed to protect her, as her pleas for help went unheard, showcasing a societal tendency to dismiss or to overlook the signs of abuse. Her tragic death serves as a call to action, emphasizing the importance of believing and supporting victims rather than blaming them for their circumstances. It urges society to engage in open conversations about domestic abuse, ensuring that victims are provided with the resources and support necessary to break free from their abusers. Nicole's story is a poignant reminder that love should never be synonymous with fear, and it underscores the necessity of prioritizing safety and support for those in abusive situations. Her name was Nicole, and this is her story. It is my honor and distinct privilege to place her directly where she belongs in this narrative, right in the center of it, never to be forgotten. If you or somebody that you love are facing domestic abuse, please know that you are not alone and that there is help available. Your safety and well-being are of the utmost importance. Please remember that you deserve to live without fear and violence, and that there are people who do care about your well-being and who want to support you. You have the right to seek help and to pursue a life free from abuse. In the description box of this video, I have compiled a range of resources and helpful links that I personally found useful when leaving my own abuser, and I encourage you to explore them. You are capable of overcoming this, and I believe in you wholeheartedly. As we conclude this chapter, let us carry forward the lessons learned and continue the fight against domestic violence in all of its forms. Together, we can work towards creating a world where every individual feels safe, valued, and empowered to live without fear. The painting I have been working on today is called Morior Invictus, I Die Unvanquished. As of the time of recording this voiceover, November 7th, 2024, I have really only completed the sketch, so, as always, I have no idea how long this will take me, but I'm into it about 9.5 hours as of today. I'll put the total elapsed time on the screen right now for the curious. It is 9 by 12 inches and will be composed of some combination of watercolor, gouache paint, Posca pen, India ink, and gilding foils on 300 GSM 140-pound cold-pressed block. This piece is available for sale, and many of my other original works are too. My books are currently open to custom commissioned work, and I'm also taking pre-orders for my next print drop.
Please visit my Instagram
at Memento Mori Art and see the pinned post for more details on the next 19 images that will be available as prints, as well as to reserve yours at the discounted pre-order pricing. I ship for free across Canada, but I'm happy to ship globally for a nominal fee. If any of that sounds interesting to you, please send me an email to hello@stageleftproject.ca. If you believe in the power of conversation, in dismantling the silence that shrouds domestic abuse, and in fostering empathy, then I invite you to be a part of the Memento Mori Stories community. Subscribe to our channel to stay engaged with thought-provoking stories, discussions, and creative expressions. Together, we can be a force for awareness, understanding, and healing. Your subscription is so much more than just a click. It's a pledge to be a part of a movement that embraces the power of storytelling to bring forth positive change. Remember, every voice matters, and yours can be a catalyst for good. Subscribe, share, and let's continue this journey together. Remember, one day you will die, but for now, live well. Ciao for now.